Congratulations! You're now a fan of the BTC. Something about this multimedia project? Yeah, let's go with that. Has interested you enough to join the official BTC Discord group trademark server. Now, if you're on this server, you might see the channel number fan content submissions where people can submit their own BTC characters. You might know how to make trains reskins, even make an original model or mesh edit. So you might now be thinking to yourself, what type of character should I make? A tank engine? A tender engine? Both? Big? Small? What livery should I use? And many, many more questions spewing out in that beautiful little mind of yours. Well, worry no more, because I, Sir Thomas, will take you through a step-by-step process of creating a BTC character. Let's begin, shall we? Before we begin, I feel like I should say a quick disclaimer. This is not a tutorial on how to reskin trains assets. As I said earlier, you're expected to have that knowledge already. If you know how to make an original model or mesh edit, most of this first part will not apply to you, so you can skip to this part here. This also isn't a hard style guide on how you should make BTC characters. Think of this more as a creative exercise to get the juices flowing. Now with that, let's begin this proper. Now in the old days, when making BTC characters, I used to do something called model first. Model first is pretty self-explanatory. You take any reskinnable model. For demonstrative purposes, we'll use Max's Tom from his engines of 8 models. Change the main livery to BTC blue. Change the secondary livery the BTC yellow. Add the logo and place the number when applicable, and remove the face. Replace it with a smokebox door. Give it a name and boom. There you go. New BTC character. Now, if you did just do that, that would still be fine, and I would accept it. It's just that that's not really how I usually make characters anymore. See, back in the old days, I felt like I needed to get 10 engines on the website every month, so I sacrificed quality for quantity. These days, however, I definitely prefer quality and unique ideas more. An example of this is the CRRB units. I watched Amtrak Guy 365's video on B units and saw the part about railroads converting A units to B units. I thought about making something like that for the BTC. My mind immediately went to CRR because Bell 1, Steve, Jacob, and XL are diesels. They're diesels, by the way. I know I mentioned that a few times now, but just in case you didn't know. And Bell 1 would be just insane to try out something like this. So after a quick cloning of assets, reskinning them into CRR colors, removing the steam in the config file, editing the mesh in IM editor to make the whistle, handrails and face invisible, and finally changing the bogie to the Bell Do bodies, made a co-bogie variant as well, and boom, it's done. Rinse and repeat for the second version. Again, I must stress that both these are valid ways to make a BTC character. It's just that my taste has shifted to the latter rather than the former as time has gone on. So let's rewind a bit. I think Tom here could make a good basis for a more unique character. So, we'll use him throughout the rest of this thought experiment. You gotta use what you can after all. It's the practical golden rule. Now that we have a canvas, you might ask, what's next? Liveries, or for the uninformed, colors. Now, when it comes to the BTC, there are 2 parts of the livery you need to consider. First is the main livery, which is the primary body color of the locomotive. The second is the secondary livery, which is for things like buffer beams and the like. Start with the main livery. There are 16 to choose from. Blue, green, red, purple, new blue, black, white, gray, light blue, cherry red, lime green, berry purple, yellow, new yellow, legacy blue, and CRR orange. That might seem like a lot, but like all things, Context matters. CRR Orange is exclusively for CRR engines, and since we're not making one in this exercise, we can cross that out. The same goes for Black, White, Gray, and Legacy Blue, as they only apply to specific situations. Yellow and New Yellow are only really for secondary liveries, so we'll skip them for now. Blue is mostly retired for engines past S200, and replaced with New Blue. So we have that, as well as green, red, purple, light blue, cherry red, lime green, and berry purple. So which one should you use? Well, that all depends on personal preference. New Blue is your first option, your default, if you will. When you look at it, you think, yeah, that's a BTC engine. Now that's not to say it's generic. Far from it. While New Blue is meant to fit in with more traditional railway blues, it still stands out among them. If you wanted to use New Blue and not consider the other liveries, I wouldn't blame you. But of course, this video would be boring if we did that. So let's go through the other liveries, shall we? Green has a certain reputation as the Player 2 livery. If there are two of the exact same class of engine on the BTC, one will be blue and the other will be green. But that's not all it's known for, as the BTC has strong characters not associated with that stigma. Emily, Emerald, Elmira, Kip to an extent. We'll cover that later. All of these characters are either main characters or strong secondary characters. And strength is the word, as the most of these characters are associated with strength, power, and speed. Yes, even Kip. Look up how fast J70s could actually go.
Toby coupled up to the carriages.
Fucking meow!
So if you wanted your character to emphasize traits of strength and power, then green might be the choice for you. Red is interesting. The one engine that was associated with it was Cherry, but she is now Cherry Red, meaning now there are no characters really associated with the color, which means the space is perfect for experimentation. Purple is interesting as well. It's definitely the most unrealistic of the liveries mentioned, although it has been used on locomotives in real life, and people have been totally normal about it online or otherwise. There are two characters that are associated with purple are Sir Thomas and Solpex. In the early days, these two were meant to be major antagonists, with Sir Thomas being the leader and Solpex being his underling. Both would basically be LNER supremacists and scheme to prove it was the best of the big four. But as time went on and the BTC leaned into a more sci-fi edge for its villains, Sir Thomas and Solpex just weren't needed for that role anymore. Now that's not to say their LNER supremacy isn't a part of their character still, it's just not as extreme as it once was. So take that as you will. Light blue, lime green, cherry red, and berry purple all kind of fall into the same boat, so I'll talk about them together. There are the lighter shades of the colors we've already talked about. Besides light blue, all of them are pretty new, only being created last year or so. They have been used on some engines, but not enough to get a vibe, so to speak. So once again, like I stated with red, they're all primed for experimentation. Okay, now that the main liveries are out of the way, let's move on to secondary liveries. As I said before, these are for the buffer beams, running board, lining, etc., etc. Yellow was the default for this, a reference to the Gmod days where most of the engines had hazard stripes. Of course, a reference as subtle as that was lost on a lot of people, so they just complained and said it looked ugly. After I got sick of these individuals whining, I decided to introduce New Yellow.
Hey everybody, so Thomas here in editing. I realized I kind of worded this segment a little bit too mean, in my opinion. So I decided I'm going to try to change it up a little and explain it a little bit better. So, as you did hear the AI say, in the Garry's Mod days, BTC characters did have hazard stripes. So, during the transition to trains, obviously I couldn't add hazard stripes to every character because they're reskins and texturing might not be the same. Work out for it, you know. So I figured the running yellow board would be a good compromise. Obviously not very realistic, I realized, but at the time I thought it looked good, so, you know. And I did explain this to a couple people, but not enough, obviously. And people didn't really understand. I mean, understand, I say. They didn't like it. And, you know, that's totally within their rights and their opinions. But, you know, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. And a lot of people said some stuff very aggressively, very angrily, and with the content I was making at the time, I get it. But eventually I decided to change things up, and I made a new yellow, which I realize is again not very realistic, but I thought, I do explain this later in the video, but for me personally, creativity should not be stifled by realism. Realism should not be a constraint for creativity. Obviously, this is just my opinion, my personal philosophy. I know a lot of people have very different ideas on that when it comes to character design and locomotive character design, personally, in general. And, I understand that, but for me, this is, again, my opinion, what I like. And, I'm rambling at this point, but you get the idea. Back to the video.
Which is a bit more of a brassy, golden yellow. As with New Blue, it has replaced yellow. Now, New Yellow is usually used for buffer beans and lining. However, that's not the only option. Light blue, lime green, cherry red, and berry purple can also be used for secondary uses. Now, if you really want to get creative, you can use New Yellow on the buffer beam and one of the light colors for the lining. The options are almost endless for livery combinations. But for this exercise, I think we'll go with BTC green with a New Yellow buffer beam and light blue lining. Sure, it may not be the most unique of combinations, but it'll work for this exercise. Now we have a livery, I think it's time to tackle that face. Now, as a disclaimer, a lot of this section will overlap heavily with my other video, the BTC Faces video, so I recommend you watch that as well. Now that that's out of the way, faces. Probably one of the things that can be customized the most with BTC characters. You can have a face based on another franchise, an already existing Thomas character face, or just have no face at all, but that's boring. Of course, most BTC characters have faces designed by me, split up into 6 different types. Let's go over them, shall we? Type 1 is the standard male face that's so simple it can be changed and edited to your heart's content. You just need to change the eye color and/or skin color, add an accessory, or even take a chunk of the face off and it can be used for another character. This, of course, applies to the Type 2 face as well, though this one is mostly for female characters but not mutually exclusive. Although Type 2 transfers to male better than Type 1 transfers to female. Type H and Type M are what one might call a cute card. If you want a character that appears to be cute, these are the faces for you. Although Type M is mostly associated with Madeline and the Line family, so Type H might be more up your alley. Type P is usually used for the Pibstone engines, but you can still use it for your character if you want to. Type OJ is definitely an outlier. There's definitely the new of only being on a few characters, so it means it's perfect for experimentation, as I've said before. But then, of course, there's skin color. This falls under the same as liveries, so we'll briefly cover it. Outside of the usual grays, for the most part I use the light colors and similar colors. Now the possibilities are kinda endless with this, so we'll cut it to only BTC colors for this exercise. Now as to what we'll do for this character, I think a Type OJ face that's lime green will work. Now our character is coming together. So this section is about miscellaneous bits not worth a full section. For example, a name. Now, if you're doing this yourself, you probably already have a name for your character. But for this exercise, we'll give them a name now. Now, usually I give characters a name related to its lore or type of engine. But if I'm stumped there, I just load up a name generator and see which name I like out of the names given. So let's see here. How about Vanessa? Yeah. That works. Now, of course, there's also accessories. Do you want your character to have glasses, a bell, perhaps even a cow catcher if you're daring? But for Vanessa here, I think she's fine without any of that. Then there's the logo. I've had the newest version of the logo on the server for a while, but I have a zip file on MediaFire as well. Links in description. Now, we haven't finished our character quite yet. But there is one last trial your character must face. A trial thousands like her have tried, but little have succeeded. That challenge is myself. Okay, I'm mostly joking about the hard trial you must face stuff, but if you have social anxiety like me, then it might as well be. So now that your character is done, you need to submit it on the official BTC Discord group server, specifically on the channel Fan Content Submissions. Please provide a picture of your character as well as the character itself and any dependencies. When the character you submitted is such, I will download it and give it a thorough look. Now at this point, I will probably make a new version and change a few things. Do not be discouraged by this, because creativity is a collaborative experience after all. Now that that's done, I will probably add your character in the next month's content update. Or maybe a few months after. I do have a job, so I can't spend as much time on this stuff as I wish. But yeah, that's it. Your character is done. It's on the website. Mission accomplished. Okay, I guess that's everything. Now, as I said multiple times during this video, this is not meant to be a set of strict guidelines you must follow when creating BTC characters. It is designed to give you ideas on how you could make a BTC character yourself. I always appreciate creative and out there designs. Maybe it's not completely realistic what you're coming up with, but that shouldn't stop you. Realism shouldn't be a constraint for creativity, and you will get criticism of your work, and it may be very negatively worded, but do not take it as a straight attack. Just take what you think are good points from said criticism and change your work accordingly. As long as you're doing it for yourself is all that matters. And if people like your stuff and become fans, hey, that's just a nice bonus. Worked for me, to some extent. Obviously, that's not sustainable for any channel with bigger goals, but I don't think anybody watching this video is really looking to become the next Mr. Beast. But I guess I'm just rambling at this point. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Check out some of my other videos if you want to. If not, then I hope you've enjoyed this one. Bye-bye.